I've always believed that you try spending and then income follows.
That's true. ये मैंने
Risky
भी देखा
strategy है लेकिन वो हो जाता है.
What has been the most expensive purchase that you've ever made in your life apart from a car or your house? What actually goes behind, firstly, selecting the startup you want to give the first check to, and what is the help beyond just the money? Because I know it's a lot more.
A VC's journey is typically a 7-8 year journey. You start really making money when your best bets actually give you money, right? And that is not very soon.
Yes.
You typically get write-offs very soon because the journey stops and you really have to write off your check. Understand numbers. Understand how to raise funds. And raising funds just doesn't mean numbers.
Numbers, yeah.
It will take a lot of things to come together. How do you really build a model?
I am talking to somebody who has been a CFO all his life.
Yes.
How can I not talk to you about your money, Yagnesh, right? I was just thinking.
I think dinner table conversation with Elon Musk will be an interesting one.
Very interesting. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dhairya Decodes Podcast. In today's episode, we're going to dive into the world of venture capital, which is a very interesting and a niche field, at least in a country like India. However, it is growing, and the pace at which the opportunities in the industry are accelerating is immense. And we have somebody who has been in this space for close to about 30 plus years when it comes to his global private equity and venture capital experience. He is none other than Yagnesh Sanghrajka, who is the founder and CFO at 100x VC, which is a pre-seed stage category 1 SEBI-registered VC and a leading one in India. They've worked with close to about 150 plus startups in the past, I would say more than 6 years now, 5 years of operation. 2019 is when they started. And what's really interesting again about his journey personally is that right from working in the IT industry, BPO to EdTech, he has had experience of working across different financial roles and obviously at the top level management of different organizations and institutions to today running his own venture capital fund. And today we're going to decode Yagnesh's journey, how he got into the industry and into the niche of finance. When did he decide on doing something of his own? How did the world of venture capital really attract him to pursue it as a career path? And what kind of startups are they working with? What kind of work are they doing today? And how is it that you could tread a similar career path as his? So without any further ado, let me welcome Yagnesh to the Dhairya Decodes Podcast.
Thank you, Dhairya, for having me and elaborate introduction. But yeah, I think it'll be an interesting journey. I've been looking forward to this. And
Yes.
Thanks for having me again.
My pleasure. No, I think we've been meaning to do this for a while. And I'm so glad that we are finally, doing this together. But before we obviously start, and I've given the audience a basic brief introduction about you, Yagnesh. However, I really like to always start with knowing a lot more about a person's childhood. And that's where I start from. Because like we were discussing off camera as well, when you get to know about a person's background and the evolution of the journey that they have gone through, you tend to connect the dots better. And I think a podcast is the best format to know more about a person. Let me start with asking you that when you reflect back upon early years in your childhood, the kind of environment that you were brought up in, maybe the kind of family you had, the upbringing that you were given by your parents, and the environment around you, just the people who you saw and the professions or the career paths they were pursuing. If you think of it right now and as you sit and reflect, what kind of an impact or influence did it have on your mind at that point? And now when you think of it, did you make certain career choices or look at life a certain way because of all of these factors?
Well, this is a good question. Back those days, I'm talking about, let me remember. This is like 70s or, early 70s was
Right.
when my schooling was there. I was actually born in Rajkot. I come from a Gujarati family. And
Business karne ke liye
business
bana hai.
connect. Yeah, but yeah, my dad was actually working. Unlike most Gujarati families that you know,
Yeah, it's very
who
rare.
run businesses, my dad was working at a job, and I mean, he was an engineer at a floor mill. So we didn't have that business environment, early those days. He was in Indore in a floor mill. His engineering job was that. And I was brought up at Indore. Like my early school days was actually Indore.
Okay.
And Indore, if you know, is full of business guys.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So when I went to school, I went to a convent school, and that's where I met most of my Marwadi friends. Indore, you have a lot of Marwadi guys with loads of money. They actually know the art of money making.
Yeah.
So in a way, not from the family background, but from my friends, is where this whole I mean, we were too young, so I don't know if we really understood also those days. But yeah, I think some interactions did take place, and I always friends with them. They are still my good friends. I mean,
Nice.
it's rare that 40 years of friendship,
Yeah.
we still meet each other regularly. But my early days, I think, did make some influence. And that was whatever you call it as the finance influence. But I wouldn't really call it that. It became much more serious later.
Right.
Because when I came to Mumbai and did my college graduation, I slowly realized one thing, and that is something very important, that money is at the forefront of most things. In any profession you actually need finance at the end of the day.
100%.
Because if you earn money, you know where to keep it. You don't know how to grow it, so you have to learn how to grow it.
Yeah.
And if you've got too much of it, then you know how to save it and how to preserve it. So at every stage, whether you're an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer, you need finance in your life.
Right.
So I think somewhere that realization came to me in my college days, not in school days, I would admit.
Yeah.
But in my college days, when I was slightly more, sensible, understood what things are, अच्छा यार ये पैसे का गेम है तो थोड़ा सीखना तो पड़ेगा, how to manage money. And that was those days, as you know, Dhairya, there were only 3 choices. Post
Doctor,
10th.
engineer.
नहीं, हाँ, साइंस, कॉमर्स और आर्ट्स.
हाँ, वो तो
हमारे टाइम पे वही था. ये सब जो प्रोफेशन निकले हैं ना, ये सब अभी निकले हैं. हमारे टाइम पे साइंस, आर्ट्स और
कॉमर्स. हाँ.
तो जिसको सबसे ज्यादा परसेंटेज आए वो साइंस,
मैंने भी जब किया था मुझे भी यही बताया गया था.
और आर्ट्स. ठीक है. तो हमको आए, इतने तो हम ब्रिलियंट थे नहीं कि साइंस आए और बायोलॉजी करे और मैथ्स करे और वो सब इंजीनियरिंग. आई वाज क्लियरली नॉट कट आउट फॉर इंजीनियरिंग. सो ऐसे चलो कॉमर्स है, पैसा तो बनेगा, उसमें सीख जाएंगे, कुछ ना कुछ करेंगे. So I selected commerce as my stream. And then as it happens, of course, did my graduation. Those days, obviously, CA, and still is a very coveted profession, very well respected profession. And I wanted to do CA. And I wanted to started aspiring for CA. And that's where I think those, just to reply to your question,
The
that's where
decision,
the whole thing.
just sorry to interrupt you, but the decision to pursue CA, because you said there were people around you and you said a lot of the people who were running businesses and from Indore.
Yes.
So those slight discussions would happen and आपको idea
And
लग
it kind
गया
of
था.
seeds your thought, right? You never realize it.
Correct.
Till
But
you
at the
are
back of
actually
your...
at the back of your mind.
So what I'm trying to understand is, did your family have any role in telling you that चलो CA कर सकते हो, या वो that was your individual
No,
choice?
it was my individual choice. My family never pushed me to do anything.
Okay.
Doing commerce, selecting commerce also was my
always your
decision.
choice.
And doing CA also was my decision.
But then what's interesting is you said your father did not come from a business background.
No.
So your father was doing a, so to say, 9 to 5 job.
Yes.
So never was there any kind of an opposition or resistance that you are trying to do something different?
No, absolutely not. That I would definitely give credit. They allowed me to do what I wanted to do. Though initially I don't say this much often, but I did flunk a couple of times in CA. It's not easy.
Yeah.
You don't pass it on the first
you can't.
attempt.
It's not...
So I did flunk a couple of times while doing my CA, but I always got that motivation and encouragement from my family. They were highly supportive and said, look, जो करना है इसी को चेस करो. 2-3 बार फेल हो जाएंगे, चलेगा. CA में तो हमारे टाइम पे होते ही थे फेल. 4-5 बार तो होते थे.
अभी भी
तो नॉर्मल है. So it's fine, and you do feel like giving up at times, but that's when the whole family bond was very strong.
Right.
They kept pushing me, and as a result, I did finish my CA eventually.
Take us through that journey of preparing for CA and that exam, because I'm sure it's not an easy one.
Those days, it used to be very tough because the success ratio, the percentage passing was very small. We had literally 2% passing in final CA, which now is in double digits, which means now probably the journey is much better.
Yeah.
People are able to do CA and clear through, though of course the syllabus is still difficult. But those days it was even 10 times more difficult. So we had to really, and I couldn't do both the groups in one shot. A lot of people do it, but I don't know how they do it. I never could do it.
Yeah.
I had to study one by one, one group at a time. And that also I flunked a couple of times. So it was a tough journey. I mean, believe me, it was tough.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Those were the only days I remember having, cried literally sometimes. But that was tough. That was tough. Yeah.
Tough. I get it. Now, let's move on from there. Obviously, you took us through how the childhood had an influence, how you were very clear from the beginning that money is at the forefront of things, like you mentioned. And you realized कि इसके around फिर कुछ करना पड़ेगा. CA made sense. Finance के लिए एक आपका एक natural calling दिख ही रहा था, is what I'm assuming, and I can see so far through your journey what I've heard. Now, tell me that when did you know that after doing your CA, how did you decide what do you did you, because I don't, did you practice as a CA? Then were you clear that, okay, I don't know what happened, but after you gave the exam, did you decide that no, I would want to maybe do like a job for a while? Be in the finance niche for sure, but maybe, I don't know, were you clear with what within finance do you want to do? Because finance is such a big niche,
deal. Yes.
right?
Yes.
And there are so many verticals that you can get into.
Yes.
How did you make that choice career-wise, that what do you want to do within finance after completing your CA?
No, it's a very good question, Dhairya. So I just recalling the past. Those days you used to do CA with a CA, right?
Yeah.
There was internship.
The
You used to
articleship.
call it articleship.
Right.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So I did it with a leading CA there, and I learned my ropes there. He was my mentor, Mr. Thanawala. I still remember his name, and I wish, I know this is one point where I would give him complete credit.
Yeah.
He nurtured me, he mentored me, worked with him, understood, learns, taxation, accounts, all of that. And typically what used to happen those days is once you pass the CA, you typically continue working with that firm, learn the ropes, and maybe at some point try to become a partner at that firm. This is what typically happens
Right.
with all the leading CA firms.
Yeah.
So which was my journey as well. I continued with him to just understand, okay, what next after that. At that point of time, we had a client which was a travel and a shipping company.
Okay.
And they needed a CFO at that point. It was straight. I mean, those days, from passing CA, you could never become a CFO immediately, right? You
Even
would-
now, I can't imagine
Yeah.
somebody
you
becoming.
could, of a meaningfully decent firm, not
Yeah.
very small firm, not very large, but
Yeah.
I got that opportunity, and that was our client. So, and by that time I could understand what practice means and all that. So, and I was clearly of the opinion that practice is not cut out for me.
How
Or
long
I'm
had
not
you
cut
been
out for practice.
doing, working with your mentor at that
So I
point?
worked with him for about 6 years, including the
years.
3 years of articles.
Oh.
And that was a long period.
Long period, yeah.
Yes, I spent a lot of time with him. I understood. And by that time, it was very clear that I'm not cut out for practice. It was a very clear decision. Thankfully, I didn't really mull over it too much.
Yeah, but you went through that journey to
Yes.
understand that I can't do
Yes,
this.
of course. I did that post-qualification, post my CA, spent a lot of time. We grew clients together. It was a
Right.
wonderful period. That was some of the period I really cherish even now. But having said that, this client really wanted a finance person.
Okay.
I said, look, we are in multi-cities and all that. Handling finance is an issue. Why don't you join us? I mean,
Yeah.
we just happened to talk, and I used to audit their books
Okay.
going to their office, right? So eventually, I ended up joining him. And
Wow.
my partner was okay with my boss was okay
How
with
old
it.
were you back then when you got this
I
opportunity?
was about 32. I mean, 66 born. So about 30s. I was in my 30s.
So in your 30s, you got
Yeah.
this
I was already
opportunity to be
married.
a
I had a
CFO.
responsibility by then. So was that jump on the corporate side.
But still, it's a
And
pretty, I
it's
think,
a-
very young
yes.
age to get to
Yes.
a position hierarchical.
Yes.
I mean, hierarchy.
I was lucky to be selected as a CFO or finance head those days.
Great.
And that was, I think it was more luck there, yeah, I feel, rather than merit or whatever.
Why do you say so?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just thinking in hindsight, I'm saying, look,
Yeah.
he wanted a and it was it's a coincidence, right? Luck happens by coincidence.
It's also
Incidentally,
maybe
they
being at
wanted
the
it
right place at the right
at
time.
the
I
right
feel.
time. Exactly. So that's a coincidence. Being at the right place at the right time. I think
Yeah.
that was it. You said it right.
You were there, and obviously he
And they
was
wanted someone.
accessible also.
I was going there every 3 months to audit books. And he said, look, this guy is good. So why don't I just hire him instead of getting a new guy? So maybe
Yeah.
that thought.
Yeah.
But, and I still remember Mr. Bhagat was his name in the travel and shipping company. It was called Everett Travel and Shipping. They were doing inbound, outbound tours for foreigners and Indians.
Okay.
Interesting business. And
Yeah.
we used to audit their books. I said, why not? Okay, let's give it a shot. But I definitely didn't want to practice. So I was very clear that that's not my journey.
Got it.
I said, okay, let's see the finance role, what it entails. Just apart from auditing, what else is in it? That was my first job, actually.
Interesting. No, very interesting. And I think so glad that you shared that. A lot of times, things that happen to us in terms of opportunities, also, when I also think back when people ask me these questions, it's so much about you have to be ready for that opportunity, but that opportunity also has to be present in front of you. And that's also about a lot about timing, visibility,
Yeah.
and so many factors.
Exactly.
But with that, I'd like to it's a very interesting journey so far. I want to understand, Yagnesh, that when you went on to become a CFO at 30, 31, 32, whatever that age was, what does the role of a CFO entail? It seems like such a fancy term, right? Chief
is.
Financial Officer, and you're dealing with money, and you feel so powerful. I think I can only think of the word power because control is vested in you, where the money goes, what you do with it. And at least when I look at it and when we would also know, okay, KPMG का CFO कौन है, हम सोचते थे इसके पास कितना पैसा होगा. So what I'm trying to understand is, let's break it down for the audience कि CFO करता क्या है? Simple question.
Actually, a very
but
good
very
question.
important one.
Very good one. I'll answer that in 2-3 pieces.
Yeah.
Contrary to what you think, CFO's job is not all that powerful, by the way.
Okay.
He is actually a stressful guy. I mean, he has stress all his time. What to do with, first of all, if the company has too much money, where to really park it?
Yeah.
Most people don't have money, so how to raise it? And raising money is not easy
True.
for the company,
Yeah.
right? The CEO and the whole team needs money to grow. And that's primarily the CFO's job, to raise money.
Correct.
And it's a stressful job. It's not just after the money comes, it's probably a little better.
Yeah.
But that first part of raising funds is not easy. So
True.
primary job of a CFO is to raise money
Okay.
for the company. Make sure the company is well funded.
Right.
A.
Yeah.
Once you've raised money, you've got to make sure that it's efficiently used.
Right.
Any CFO, any level, I would advise that please make sure, if you are a CFO or if you're in a finance role, make sure the money is properly utilized. Very few CFOs realize that either fundraising is his only job or handling investors is the only job. But in between, there's a very important job, which is making sure the money is being spent in the right pocket by the company.
Correct.
Because CEOs and marketing guys typically would like to kind of spend more money to get more clients,
Yeah.
grow business.
Right.
But a CFO's job is like a gatekeeper. How much is there? How many months of runway do we have? I
Yeah.
think those cash flow management related skills are very important for a CFO. That's what he brings to the table.
Correct.
And it's a stressful thing. You have to fight it out with the board and the management and say, look, hey, you can't spend too much.
Right.
And if you're spending too little, the growth is not coming. So either ways, he's always at the loggerheads with the management, right? So it's not an easy job as
Yeah.
most people think.
Now, as you tell me, I'm thinking about it. Not as fancy as we think it is.
It is not. It is not. A CFO's job is very stressful. Of course, there are some very good aspects to it where you meet investors, you try to position your company, right?
Right.
A CFO typically ends up presenting to investors
Correct.
whenever you're raising money, or in fact, just investor relations.
Yeah.
After you've raised, you're supposed to give them updates, right? Every quarter, every year as to what's happening in the
Right.
company.
Right.
Those updates have to be very well done. You cannot just go out and say everything.
Correct.
You have to really tell them what is meaningful for the investors. So that's another skill that an investor and a CFO should have. Investor relations is a big deal, and I was handling that for the companies that I worked for after
Right.
the stint with Hinduja, etc. I mean, Hinduja was my first break.
Okay.
That I remember very distinctly because that was the first large conglomerate I got.
You worked with.
Post that travel and shipping company, immediately I kind of joined very soon after a couple of stints Hinduja Group, which was my first big corporate stint.
Got it.
And that's where I realized the entire role. Managing the board, you were part of the board, right? You were presenting your annual plans, investor relations, because Hinduja was a listed company. We had to handle investors,
Right.
cash flow management, everything. So that was it. That's how, just to answer your question, that's how
That's what a
it
CFO's
happens.
job is. Okay, very interesting. And because you also touched upon the skills, which was very interesting, and I was going to ask you that, if you could extend that a little, Yagnesh, you obviously mentioned that you need to know how to manage finances and know where money has to be parked, where do you efficiently utilize it, and obviously investor relations.
Yes.
But technically, any specific hard or soft skills that you think are extremely necessary to grow, because you've spent about 30 years in the industry.
Yes.
Just to succeed here in this industry, in the finance niche, and if you want to be a CFO, ultimately, that's your goal. What are some skills, hard skills wise or soft skills wise, that you think are necessary for a person to build if they want to have a
hard
career?
skills, hard skills are very easy. Hard skills are something which you can touch and feel.
Yeah.
Right? Knowing cash flow, knowing budgeting, knowing forecasting.
Right.
These are things that you will have to anyway acquire. These are essentials.
Yeah.
These are like, tick boxes that you need to have.
Right.
Some of the softer aspects that very few CFOs realize, and I've been blessed with good teams that I've led. But what is at the core is the team management. What is very important is you should, like any other role, an HR head role or a CEO role or a CMO's role, marketing head role, you need to be very good at your team management. Because the churn that happens in your team just puts you out in terms of deliverables. And believe me, CFO also handles compliance and risks.
Yeah.
Which sometimes is not, there is no leisure of time there. In business, you might just, be out of your goals and be able to achieve it in the next 3 months. In the life of a CFO, if something has to be done by 31st March, that has to be done by 31st March. There is no going back or saying, okay, no, I didn't have staff or everything, but I'll do it next month. A CFO's job is very good, very highly dependent on governance and regulations.
Right.
So you need to have your team very tight. Something that you have to start building. These are some of the softer skills I have seen have worked very well. So you need to definitely learn team management, your own interpersonal relations with your team. I think those things matter regardless of your job.
Correct.
And very few CFOs actually learn that skill.
Yeah.
They think, okay, knowing finance, knowing numbers,
Is enough.
spreadsheets is good enough.
Yeah.
I'll be a good guy at it. Not everything is going to be done by you at the end of the day, if you are aspiring to be a CFO.
Yeah, exactly. It's your team who is going to execute things on ground.
I think those things become important.
Got it. No, I'm glad that you touched, upon the soft skills area and the fact that you mentioned actually being able to lead a team and have the capability of maybe interpersonal communication, being able to understand human emotions also, I feel is very
Exactly.
important because
Yeah,
like you said,
motivation, because every team member that joins you
yeah,
is here to grow.
true.
And if you do not give them a path for career or growth, they're eventually going to leave you. As simple as that. It's very basic rule, right? Attrition happens because people lose opportunities and they don't see opportunities in their current roles.
Yeah.
So you have to constantly, A is every year appraisals, which is a different thing, which is a hard thing. But how do you make them stay for 5 years in the company?
Exactly.
And give them a career and not just pre-promising them, but also give it to them.
Right.
That's something that people have to learn.
True.
Only then your job is much simpler if your team is performing well.
Yeah.
And I've always believed in giving to the team as much as possible. Some CFOs have this insecurity, or any leader has this insecurity that, if I teach someone, my relevance is gone.
Gone, yeah.
It's actually otherwise.
Yeah.
The more you take work from team, the more better you will become in your life. You will be able to take much more on.
No, but I've seen very few people have that mindset. Honestly speaking, it's mostly the other way around. Like you said, people generally think if I'm training somebody and probably doing a knowledge transfer or leading a team and
I'll
there's-
become irrelevant.
Yes,
right?
I become
That's
irrelevant.
not the case.
Yeah.
You're supposed to actually get more skills and become more, strategically thinking oriented, and you have better roles to do. And that's what typically happens
Yeah.
with good guys. I mean, they know the whole secret.
Correct.
It's not about keeping knowledge to yourself.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm so glad you shared that as well because it's such a, like I said, a unique take, but also the right approach. Like you said, I also feel that's what a good leader would do. More than anything else, leadership is defined this way, right? You
exactly.
don't just think about yourself, you think about your team and then you move towards that same goal together.
Exactly.
So thanks for sharing that as well, Yagnesh. With that, let's move on to now understanding when obviously you had a fairly successful career, if I was to say so, because right from being a CFO at the age of 31, 32 to joining Hinduja Group, and then you had a couple of other stints. But you had a fairly long stint at MT Educare, if I'm not wrong.
That's right.
And they were in the edtech business.
That's right.
And obviously...
EdTech those days wasn't EdTech. There was no EdTech.
There was no EdTech. Yeah, I remember you telling me this.
Yeah.
But I mean, the education industry at the core,
That's right.
especially if I look at it in the offline sense, MT Educare was a name that, I mean, even today
Everybody
people know
knew.
of it.
Mahesh Tutorials.
Mahesh Tutorials. So
Exactly.
take us a little bit through your transition from Hinduja to moving to the education space. How did that happen and what really attracted you to working in the education niche then?
It's a very interesting journey, but in between something very interesting happened there,
Okay.
which I'll tell you.
Sure.
Post Hinduja, I got selected for a role in a VC firm.
Okay.
I didn't know what a VC was
At that time.
at that time, 2007.
Uh-huh.
I joined Bessemer at that point.
Okay.
Now, Bessemer is one of the marquee VCs of the world.
Right.
Used to be in the top 5,
Yeah.
still is.
Yeah.
A marquee VC firm, global firm,
Right.
having office in India, and they were looking for a partner. I don't know what that happened, and everything just kind of came together like I always feel.
Yeah.
And something clicked and I joined Bessemer.
Oh, you joined them also?
Yes, I joined them, worked with them for 3 years.
Okay.
That's where my initial VC learning happened. And I think that sowed the seed of a VC in me somewhere.
Right.
And then, of course, post the financial meltdown, you had to obviously come back to the corporate. VC was not investing. Those days, post 2009, if you remember,
Yes.
most of the investing was literally frozen.
Frozen, yeah,
Right?
completely.
So I went back to the corporate, and that's when actually after a couple of stints, MT Educare happened. I used to be in a firm where I used to have to travel a lot
Okay.
between Hyderabad, Mumbai, etc. And I was looking to come back to base, which is Mumbai, of course. My family was here, wife and kids here. So had to come back to a more stable environment.
Right.
And that's where I met MT Educare through obviously a headhunter kind of found me from somewhere. And I got interviewed by the top management, and I think 5-6 people interviewed me,
Okay.
including the MD and the board and one of the investors on board.
Right.
He also obviously, being a CFO position, investors do get involved in hiring
Yes.
of CFOs, as you
Yes.
know. So all that happened, and I got selected in 2012. We just listed that time.
Right.
And they were looking for somebody with a listed company experience. And I was probably a good choice, which also kind of who had worked in a listed environment, being Hinduja.
Right.
And then, of course, also investing side from Bessemer.
Correct.
So I had this very unique mix of looking at both the sides of the
ends.
table.
Yeah.
And maybe that played on to the selection, and I got hired for it. And then I joined Mahesh Tutorials, and that was an interesting journey. Post listing, we had enough of money, so we started expanding recording studios. In fact, the edtech piece began there. And those days it wasn't edtech, and Byju's wasn't even there on the scene those days. But we started recording content. We used to have content. We had brilliant teachers, right? As you know.
Right. Yeah. For sure.
Marquee
Mahesh
teachers,
Tutorials. Yeah.
known for teachers.
Known for teachers.
Now, the owner, Mahesh Shetty, had this beautiful vision about creating content
Okay.
for students.
Back then.
Back then, he was a visionary. He thought of it before anyone else did.
Yeah.
And we created a product called Robomate,
Right.
which was digital content,
Okay.
right? We didn't call it edtech, of course, but we kind of started making it in-house, like the studio we have here.
Yeah.
We had studios in our office. We recorded content from our teachers,
Very interesting.
made it available to students on tablets.
Oh.
Nobody did that. Nobody even thought of it.
हाँ उस time पे तो I
And
don't
काफी
think
लोग
tablets-
जो those guys who were in school ना,
Yeah.
उस time जो college में थे, schools में थे, during the 2013 to 2016 period,
हाँ.
got tablets from Mahesh Tutorials to learn content. And that's exactly what most people will remember
So
this.
by content you mean Yagnesh, teachers
Recording.
would sit in the
Teachers would
studios
sit
and
in the studios and
record the
record.
content.
Exactly.
The modules and
Exactly.
the oh.
They became the live wire there. They recorded content from the teachers whom
Okay.
everybody loved to kind of watch. And not everybody had the chance to attend.
And these were all your subjects, मतलब सारे subjects के
experts,
teachers.
every subject.
Subject matter experts.
We literally started making content from 5th standard
Wow.
to 12th, and then CA and IIT. IIT entrance. Everything back to back. It was a huge 2-3 year journey for us, recording, selling it to our own students, made the course more attractive.
Right.
And also started selling content. B2B, B2C.
Yeah.
Those days, B2B, B2C words were also not there. But we started doing that. We sold to institutions, colleges, schools, this content. And then that's how it happened. So it was a very interesting journey in MT Educare.
Very interesting. And your role at MT Educare again was of a CFO.
CFO, I was out there. We acquired a couple of companies out there
Okay.
who were doing some coaching, etc. We went and acquired some companies because we had the money to do it.
Right.
We raised funds from investors. All that happened, and it was. I've seen the entire journey of creating this whole content. So all about how do you really create assets within your company, and though it went a little capex heavy, but we really did that content beautifully. I think the quality of that content is still remembered by those students.
Yeah, I'm sure.
That was interesting.
Very interesting. And I think also, like you said, because you had seen both sides of the table and what they were looking at also, they had just, become a listed company, and obviously the money was coming in. And like you said, where do you put the money is also important.
Important.
And how do you then use it to further grow the company, right? So could you also maybe share a little bit about because again, when we talk about acquisitions and companies being acquired, this is again in the finance world, and when we talk about mergers and acquisitions, these are buzzwords. People just use them very loosely without understanding the actual context and true essence of it.
Yes.
When you said that, you also went on to acquire a few coaching or tutorial classes or
That's right.
other coaching centers. How does the acquisition take place? Simple. Like company A decides to acquire company B, and acquisition ho jata hai, news goes out.
Yes.
People don't know how that happens. I'm sure it's a very
happens
lengthy
behind the
process.
scenes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's a very lengthy process. First, you have to literally see who is the right target. If you are out acquiring skill sets, what are you really acquiring?
Okay.
Are you really acquiring new business?
Yeah.
Are you really acquiring skill sets? What are you acquiring? You need to be very clear. If you're not clear, then you will most likely make a wrong acquisition. We were very clear that we want to acquire. We didn't have IIT expertise those days. We had the CET expertise, which is the local
The
science
state, the state entrance
entrances.
examinations. Yeah.
But we didn't have IIT entrance
Teachers,
abilities,
experts, huh?
which means we have to go out and acquire.
Hmm.
And we did exactly that. Chandigarh and Kota and all those places, are educational hubs for IIT.
Right.
We went and acquired an IIT institute,
Okay.
small institute, which it was called Vedantu's founders did it. It was Lakshya. Lakshya was one of the leading IIT entrance examination coaching
I've heard of
institutes
them.
in Chandigarh. We went and acquired them. Those founders actually are the current founders of Vedantu. Vedantu is one of the
Vedantu
leading
learning,
edtechs in the company today in India today.
Yeah.
So those founders literally were running those coaching institutes. So we went and acquired them. I was there sitting for 2 weeks and literally doing the diligence, and we really closed the deal in less than a month actually.
Okay.
Very fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, most acquisitions do take time. What is more important is post-acquisition integration.
Right.
एक्विजिशन तो हो जाता है,
हाँ.
पैसा चला गया, हो गया सब, एवरीथिंग अंकी डोरी न्यूज आ गया, उसके बाद में क्या, हाउ डू यू रियली इंटीग्रेट and make that 1 into 1 which is 11,
Correct.
which is not 2, 1 plus 1.
Because that doesn't generally happen the right way.
So to make an acquisition successful is the whole secret sauce here. And that is what you need to learn. So aspects like these become very important post acquisition.
Very interesting. Great. And I think I'm sure that, like you mentioned, when you go through the entire process, there is very heavy due diligence also that you look into, and numbers, everything is looked into, right? And also then, how much will you guys be able to contribute to this to make, let's say, an X, a 5X or whatever, 7X? Because you are looking at this as an avenue to
grow
your business at the end of the day, like you said. Very interesting. With that, all of this happened. And I know that, like you said, you had a small stint of 3 years at Bismarck, like you mentioned, where you got a taste of the VC industry in a way, right? When was that point or that juncture when you knew that I've done enough for different firms, leading companies and all kinds of different industries, and now I want to do something of my own, and that too specifically in venture capital. So what was that point for you?
Yes, that point arrived, I distinctly remember, after we sold MT Educare. So MT Educare, by the way, we sold MT Educare. There was an acquisition by Z Group.
And at that time also you were still there as a part of the system.
I was there as the CFO. And then, of course, we decided to sell the company to Z.
Okay.
Z-Learn acquired Mahesh Tutorials.
Okay.
MT Educare. This was in 2018.
Okay.
At that point, of course, as most acquisitions happened, the leadership team probably got replaced, and they obviously had guys from Z-Learn coming and taking over.
Right.
At that point, of course, I left MT Educare, and I was at a juncture, I think I was just 50 then. And then I started thinking, I said, okay, now we've done everything, right? You've done acquisitions, you've done listing companies, everything. What next? So obviously, I wasn't looking for a job. There was enough of my jobs. I've done enough service and spanned across industries and wanted to do something on my own. So I started consulting what I knew best, right? Finance, fundraising, MIS, budgeting.
Right.
I started consulting some companies.
Okay.
And I had something in my back of my mind saying, okay, VC wala dream was there when I was in Bessemer. So did have this dream of becoming a VC one day. But it's a distant dream at that point. Not everyone becomes a VC so soon.
Yeah.
Just because you think of it and you don't become one.
Yeah.
So as luck would have it, one of our family friends, Sanjay Mehta, who is a very renowned investor.
Yeah.
He was an angel investor. He used to invest through angel networks, and he was a marquee angel investor. He had some few big wins to his portfolio. And he had, in fact, 4 unicorns in that time, those days. This is, I'm saying, 2011 to 2017-18 period.
Right.
So I met him one of these days and he said, "Kya kar rahe ho?" and all that. I said, "Bas consulting kar rahe hain, bas." And he didn't know me before. So we just got introduced during that time.
Okay.
And with a few family functions, he was a family friend. So my parents and his parents know each other very well.
Okay.
Through that. So we met in common places, and he was thinking of launching a fund.
Okay.
Because after angel investing, obviously the next step was to start a fund.
Yeah.
And he was looking for partners, and obviously he thought of a couple of guys, and we met accidentally, and we said, "Look, I'm starting a fund. Why don't you join me? And let's start together a fund." And I took some time to kind of warm up to it, but then I said, "Fine, this is what probably I'm looking for, and this is the next big thing we want to do." And that's how it happened. That so 100x VC was born at that point.
At
of
that
time.
point
we
of
actually
time.
started it together.
What an interesting story. And now that you told me that Sanjay's parents and your parents were friends.
Yes,
So
our friends.
you should our friends. So you should attribute
To my
probably
parents.
100x to your parents.
Eventually, my parents
Eventually,
did
your
contribute.
parents did. That is what. That's why I say childhood and family does play a very big role. See,
Yes.
now when we are going back and you're telling me everything, it is connected,
Makes
right?
sense. Yes, of course.
How did Sanjay really know that he would want to partner up with you? Because when today, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Yagnesh, but even when you would be investing in startups today and when you are putting in checks, I'm sure the founding team, the founder, the co-founders, and what their vision is and the kind of people they are is a very important factor that gets you into putting in your money and your cash
Yes.
there. He was also, in a way, if not putting cash
Investing
necessarily,
personally, yes.
investing in the person, in you.
Yes. Yes.
How did you, the two, firstly, you took some time, like you said, to, maybe you let that idea rest and then you took the decision. But how did the two of you know that you can partner up as a team and build something together?
I think these things evolve over time, right?
Yeah.
Though it may be 3 months, it may be 6 months, but it is a matter of couple of interactions.
Right.
So what I kind of learned what his vision was, and believe me, he's one of the people why we are sitting here and doing this, because he did introduce me to the idea of early stage, of what really he does and what is the life of an early stage founder, and why early stage. So 100x started with that whole belief of funding early stage founders.
Founders, yeah.
Like right? You introduced us saying, okay, this is a pre-seed fund.
Yeah.
Why pre-seed? So my question exactly was that to him. Why pre-seed? Where you don't know practically anything.
Correct.
Right? The founder is out there. He's coming to ask you for a check.
Yeah.
You don't know what to ask him. Right?
Because he's also still figuring so many things out.
He has not yet figured out most things. But but this is exactly what you do, right? How do you really crack that?
Right.
That is the most difficult thing to crack.
Right.
And I think he had cracked it earlier in his life. He did angel investing. He had success.
Correct.
Which kind of led me to believe that he knows this art. And I love to learn even now. At this age, even now, I learn from people. I learn from my team. I learn from everyone I meet.
Yeah.
Which is exactly why I was very fascinated with his journey. And he literally led me to it. He says, look, this is what it is. It's new. I was always a numbers guy and everything. I mean, evolved numbers, spreadsheets, business models, financial models. He said, "Isme na ye sab chalega nahi, Yagnesh.
Proper finance.
You literally need to connect with the founders, okay, and teach them what you already learned."
Right.
That sounded interesting to me because these founders do not understand finance as much as we do, right?
Again, it's that soft skills bit, not more of just hard skills.
Soft skills also and hard skills
Hard
too.
skills also.
I mean, founders, believe me, after 5 years now
Yeah.
in 100x, I feel really blessed that I have helped so many founders understand numbers, understand how to raise funds. And raising funds just doesn't mean numbers.
Numbers, yeah.
It will take a lot of things to come together. How do you really build a model?
Yeah.
How do you really convince an investor? Investors are the sharpest lot in finance world. How do you really convince him to write a check? Like that is something that you want to teach founders. And that's a passion. Like at that age, we really didn't come together for money.
Yeah.
I mean, money is one aspect.
Yeah.
But 100x VC came together, all 5 of us, all 5 partners came because we had a purpose.
Right.
We wanted to give back. We were all okay, well-to-do guys.
Yeah.
Money really
The
didn't
purpose
mean
was
anything.
not, yeah, I mean.
The purpose was to kind of help early stage founders. And nobody was doing that
Right.
at that point.
At that point.
Even those days, VCs used to cut checks only when you had a business, when you had something done.
True.
Nobody was doing early stage.
Yeah.
Pre-seed, seed होता था फिर भी, लेकिन pre-seed तो
Pre-seed
बिल्कुल
तो
नहीं।
नहीं होता था. नहीं.
मतलब आपने कंपनी खोली 4 महीने के बाद आपको पैसा चाहिए,
हाँ.
कौन देगा आपको? Nobody will give you. Even today.
Yeah. Even
It's not
today,
easy.
It's not easy.
Yeah. So very few people realize that the problems that an early stage founder faces.
Right.
So we wanted to make that journey easy. It was one line mission.
Got it.
Make their journey easy, founder friendly. We have started with those taglines saying, investing simplified, founder friendly. This is what we stand for.
Right.
And I think I kind of synchronized with his vision. And then we created this whole, instrument, which is Safe Notes, iSAFE.
Yeah.
I actually kind of coined that. And of course, this was inspired from Y Combinator of the US.
Yes.
Safe Notes they invest into. And they've had some large unicorns. And Y Combinator, everybody knows, right? We really were inspired with that journey of Y Combinator. And we thought we'll bring iSAFE to India.
Okay.
And we really invented that here.
Right.
Made it compliance with Indian laws.
Can you talk a little bit about iSAFE just for the people who don't know
Yes.
what it is?
So I'll tell you, it's a very founder-friendly instrument.
Okay.
Of course, it takes a form of CCPS, which is preference shares, which
Yeah.
normally people use to invest.
Right.
But we made it founder-friendly. We made literally a 5-page agreement. And we said, look, sign this, take the check, and there it is. Fundraising doesn't have to be 6 months affair. Let's crunch the time down.
Right.
Let's crunch the pages also. You know, a typical agreement of shareholders, if you've seen, 50 pages.
Yeah,
long.
yeah, very long.
Half the things people don't even understand.
Yeah.
So we made it easy to understand, investing simplified.
Right.
So we really made it so easy that a founder reads it, understands, and we sign it and we transfer the money.
Got it.
Idea was to crunch the timeline because an early stage founder doesn't really have time.
Yeah.
He doesn't have time to do fundraise.
Yeah.
Business बनाएगा, product बनाएगा कि fundraise करेगा.
Correct.
So make at least that part of the journey easy, which is what it's all about. So that's how we started actually.
Very interesting. And I think the fact that you mentioned that the focus or the vision was very clear from day one for all of you as partners, and you knew that you are tapping into an area or a zone that is untouched, right? Because like you said, it is probably everybody was looking at funded companies or people who had already been in the business, but somebody who's just getting started and actually needs that support, nobody was catering to them. And I think obviously that vision has still stayed, and that is exactly what you're doing. Can you also talk a little bit about now that there are 150 plus startups you guys have invested in since 2019, right, Yagnesh? Can you share a few startup founder stories or certain startup success stories of how the journey was? Maybe how did things look like when they came to you for the first investment? You gave that first check in to a journey, not maybe a very, I would say, not from an exit standpoint or perspective per se, but certain success stories which are very close to your heart, wherein you have actually seen a founder and the team grow and do well.
Yeah, well, there are quite a few. Of
Right.
course, we, just to call it out, we started investing in 2019.
Right.
And typically a VC, just to kind of introduce to the audience how a VC works.
Yes.
A VC's journey is typically a 7-8 year journey.
Okay.
You start really making money when your best bets actually give you money, right? And that is not very soon.
Yes.
You typically get write-offs very soon because the journey stops and you really have to write off your check,
Yeah.
which happens faster. But the success stories take longer to evolve and then to show you that kind of color of money that you've invested for.
Yeah.
So it happens in pretty much 4th, 5th year, which is what we are right now in. We are in the
Right.
5th year.
You're now in the
So we're starting to see that success. We did have a couple of companies from our first batch who are now breaking out, which I remember, and we're still very closely working with them. So I mean, obviously, just to take a few names here, there is a company called Desi. It's a dental tech startup platform. They work with dentists to kind of make their jobs easier, operations easier, and take over the entire operations. Pretty much they've worked with them closely right from the first batch. They got funded by Sequoia, Chirate.
Nice.
And of course did their Series A very soon in 3rd year itself.
Right.
That's one of the companies. Second is, of course, there's this company everybody probably knows is Kerala Banana Chips,
Yeah.
which has kind of make it big after Shark Tank
Shark Tank.
fame. It's a solo founder.
Yeah. It's the
Okay,
same.
and then now he got the core team. But the hustle he had and everything that he did and a D2C brand to grow at this stage very soon
Yeah.
is a success story of itself. So have very fond memories of that. And of course, lately you've seen Up Coffee, one of our investments in coffee space, having raised a check from Nexus. So very close to my heart. Some of these stories, there are quite a few, but
Yeah.
some interesting names here where you've seen the founder, like solo founders. It's surprisingly so. People feel that solo founders don't really succeed.
Yeah. That's
It's
a
not
notion.
about solo founders of course, the journey is far easier if you have 2-3 founders.
Yeah.
But it's not the rule that solo founders don't succeed.
Okay.
These are 2 solo founders that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Up Coffee and Beyond Snack, Kerala Banana Chips. Single founders. Having have that hustle to kind of make it big.
Right.
And have been executing. These are execution heavy businesses.
Yeah, for sure.
Apart from the product, it is execution heavy. You can't do that unless you have a brilliant team and you really slog it out.
100%.
So I think it's all about that, and you start learning that. You start also learn a lot from the founders. You help them with whatever you've learned all these years, and they've put to use. The best part about successful founders, if I may, is their coachability.
Right.
The best founders are
ability
the
to
ones
learn.
learn.
Yeah.
That is something that every founder will have to learn. Not everything you know. So you have to be open to learn. Do not ever have a fixed mindset. If you have that, then you're pretty much like an open book, right? You can absorb everything and implement what you wish to.
Correct.
But it's very important to filter these things out. Yeah. But I mean, today there's enough mentorship. Those days, obviously 18, 19, I'm talking about, not too much mentors were happening.
Yeah.
Early stage now is also a focus of, by the way, large VCs. So if you really see the journey of last 4 or 5 years, a lot of early stage VCs have now entered pre-seed and seed checks.
Yes.
They want to come in early. That's the trend.
Right.
And I mean, thankfully, we've already been at the forefront of it. So we understand that game probably much better than the rest.
Right.
And that has helped us in our portfolio as well. We've also learned a lot from the last 4 years.
Very interesting, and so good to also know that a lot of these names that we have obviously seen, not just on television, but heard of and use their products. And the fact that you mentioned that they are solo founders, it all just boils down to kind of at least telling me or teaching me one thing, that it's more about the vision, the rigor, the kind of team that you build, and sticking to the why. And again, like you said, a founder having that coachable attitude. But I think, Yagnesh, I also remember when I had this conversation with you the last time we met, you told me very clearly that it's not just the check or the money or that first, pre-seed funding that we provide to a founder. It's much more beyond that.
Yes.
I know of the mentorship hours that all of you as partners spend also on each founder that you're investing in. Can you elaborate a little more on what actually goes behind, firstly, selecting the startup you want to give the first check to, and what is the help beyond just the money? Because I know it's a lot more than that.
No, I think very well put out. I'll try to kind of attempt to answer that. And this is now in our DNA. First is the selection, right?
Right.
When you don't have too much, its idea is on paper, you typically try to find out how big is the market opportunity. You really spend hours and hours, because you obviously don't want to fund an average performer. Because there is, the mortality rate in startups, right? It's 99% pretty much.
Pretty much.
So that 1% crowd, you're literally finding a needle in the haystack, first of all.
Yeah.
Then you start looking at that and find, okay, is that a large opportunity? Does the founder really understand money? Because at the end of it, he has to obviously return the investor's money with a handsome amount of return, right? The ROI has to be nice. So just apart from the market opportunity, does the founder not just understands technology, but also understands numbers, money? Because he's going to have to make those successful fundraisers later.
Right.
So does he really get it? That's something that most people forget in the, excitement of building the product. प्रोडक्ट तो बना लिया.
Correct.
अब वो कस्टमर अगर खरीदेगा तो ठीक है, पर कस्टमर ने अगर स्लोली खरीदा, अडॉप्शन कम हो रहा है,
Right.
टिल देन आपको सर्वाइव तो करना है. Ultimately, you need funds to
Funds to
survive.
survive, yeah.
And for that, if you do not learn the art of fundraising,
हाँ.
you will pretty much, your dreams will just die just like that.
And also
in the
आप
between.
फर्स्ट चेक दे रहे हो, आगे जाके उनको और भी तो रेस करना है.
तो
right?
हमारा चेक तो चलो 12-15 महीना चलेगा.
चल जाएगा. हाँ.
उसके बाद क्या? अगर तब तक प्रोडक्ट नहीं बना, एंड देयर आर लॉट ऑफ इफ्स एंड बट्स इन द जर्नी, राइट? पूरा प्रोडक्ट नहीं बना, आपने सोचा 6 महीने में बन जाएगा, नहीं बना, 12 महीना लग गया. अब अगर उसी स्पीड से आप खर्चा करोगे तो यू आर बाउंड टू रन आउट ऑफ
कैश. Yeah.
Which means you have to learn when to raise, not just how much to raise.
Yeah.
So all these things become very important. So just to answer your question, we also start once we've invested. So we do not really like to mentor anyone that we have not funded.
Got it.
We want to first put our skin in the game, obviously, and then put efforts. So once we've invested, we start working with the founders, help them not just in fundraising, which I take care of within the team, but also go to market, their product. We have a CTO in-house. He understands tech. He sits with them and understands tech, helps them on that. Go to market, business, product itself.
Right.
Every aspect. And we bring all our networks together, which is a huge amount of network. And then help them, the founder, whichever best we can. And then give them introduction to VCs and all. I mean, right now, I'm happy to say that top 50, 60 VCs have actually invested in our portfolio.
Yeah.
So we have a fair amount of relationships with all the large VCs that you can think of.
Right.
And they're just a phone call away, right? They're looking for good deals. Out of that 100, if they can fund that one, and then for them it's another cohort. And then the chance of success is much better. They get much more curated deals from us. They get filtered deals from us where we've also worked, invested, and got them ready. So these are VC ready deals that we are giving them. So the VCs do engage very closely with us, and part of our mentorship is also to showcase them to the VCs through a pitch day. So we do a pitch day, demo day, which kind of founders give their elevated pitches, and then of course post that investors come in. So as part of that, we have a month-long program just before the pitch day where they all come and spend time with us, and we also get experts from outside. We do fireside chats, we do master classes. A lot of people are happy to contribute. Believe me, there are so many people out there who want to give it back.
Right.
And this is all pro bono. They all come because they want to help founders. And it's a community now. We have a panel of like 50, 60 guys who are always ready to say, look, tera batch kab aa raha hai? I'll come and help them. Somebody like very well-funded founders, those who have raised their Series A, Series B checks, 10 million, 25 million.
Yeah.
They come and talk to founders. Imagine what kind of value it brings to
It
the
brings to
founders.
them, obviously.
So that's something that we do post-funding. And that's exactly what our portfolio loves us for.
Right.
And in return, they obviously refer other founders, promising guys to say, look, apply to 100x.
Yeah.
And this is what you get, not just the check.
Yeah.
But also this is far more valuable than
It
just
has
the
to
check.
go beyond it, I also feel, because
Early stage, it has to.
it has to. True.
After a while, it becomes more of an execution play and just replaying the whole playbook.
Correct.
It's all about that. But
But
early
building the
stages,
playbook in itself is the real challenge.
that's the main challenge.
Yeah. And I think you are the ones who are helping them lay those foundation blocks.
Yeah, we try to. We
You
help
try
them.
to, yeah.
Those who are coachable get it. And they make their foundation strong.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the effort from our side. At least we give all the efforts to do that. And we are very closely connected. All partners are on a call basis to founders. They become our alumni, they become our family.
Right.
So unlike any other fund which just invest and trust reviewing, we also they give us a call anytime and say, look, Yagnesh, I'm stuck. What do I do?
Right.
And we help them out. And that's what we're very proud of. And that's what we love.
Yeah, I'm sure. I think, again, at the end of the day, it's all about the people.
Yes.
It is the people, and
Yes,
it
exactly.
is the relationships that you're able to maintain with them that is going to move everything around. Every
And the
piece.
portfolio founders give it back by saying, look, any portfolio guy who you fund,
Yeah.
if they need any help, do let us know.
Yeah, exactly.
Some of our guys have come and done masterclasses for them.
It's a network
help
effect.
them out. It's a network effect.
True. I also want to touch upon the CVC part because you take care of it at
Yes.
100x VC.
Of course, yes.
The corporate venture capital piece. It's a very interesting and a very niche,
Yes.
field again, so to say. And again, I don't think a lot of people talk about it or know of it. But I've had an off-camera or off whatever podcast conversation with you on it. I really want the audience to know a little bit about CVC,
Sure.
how you are specifically doing it at 100x VC as well.
Sure. So that actually happened by accident, interestingly.
Yeah.
We were on our own 100x. We were doing the stuff that we do. And we felt a lot of corporates were also interested in looking at startups.
Okay.
And which, of course, CVC, which is corporate venture capital, is a very known phenomenon out there in the West. There are a lot of leading companies who set up funds aside just to invest startups in their strategic areas.
Okay.
Let's say there's an energy management company. They would like to look at startups who are doing something in energy management.
Right.
Anything that relates to that industry, which means it's a strategic investment. It may not be a large check or a small check, but they want to know what's happening. Right? They want to know what these new startups are doing.
Correct.
The only way to do it is to kind of engage with these startups. And where do you find them? The corporates are too busy. They are too large. They are not nimble enough to do this.
Yeah.
Which means we get almost 5,000-6,000 decks a year. We invest in about 30, 40
6,000 decks a year.
6,000 decks a year. And we select 30, 40 out of that. So that's the ratio you're talking about anyway. And then once we do that, so we have a big database of startup founders.
Right.
And they will be from all, as you know, we are sector agnostic. So we get decks from everywhere.
Correct.
We know what's happening in the industry, what people are trying.
All across.
All across.
Yeah.
So we said, why not? I mean, Sanjay and me were discussing one day, and then we said, why not we start corporate venture capital? Let's just start it and see where it goes. We'll help corporates to discover these startups.
Got it.
We'll put a separate team to just focus on it.
Right.
But it's a big involvement, and we'll help corporates to find these startups, invest if they like.
Yeah.
They can diligence and we can help them through the entire process. Also grooming founders. We know what founders' mindset. So we know this side of the table. And I've been in corporate, so I understand how a corporate thinks. So that's what I think worked. And we did start working. And the first client we got and the first corporate we started working with Pidilite.
Nice.
Pidilite, as you know, is Fevicol and Fix-It brand and all that. So they were large company, listed company.
Yeah.
They were very keen to look at it and let's start working together. And then we started working together. They've already made like at least 5-6 investments through us.
Great.
And then invested in small checks, large checks and all that. Worked out very well. And we knew that corporates want this.
Right.
And recently last year, we did a cohort for Panasonic.
Okay.
Panasonic has a large presence in India, as you know, right?
Right.
Office, energy and space equipment. They are very niche. They understand their business and they are a very large organization. They were very interested to know what Indian startups are up to. So last year we did a program called Ignition
Right.
for them. Out of 150, 200 applications, we selected 12 companies, startups. And the first theme for Ignition was, energy management. Companies who are doing stuff in energy management in commercial spaces. That too.
Okay.
So they gave us a mandate saying, look, these companies. So you can
Right.
find these and shortlist.
Yeah.
We did that. We ran the program with them. You need a very heavy involvement from the corporate as well
Yeah,
to make this successful.
for sure.
So companies who are looking out to do CVC, it's not just something that you outsource. You also have to get involved from the top. So we did that, and Panasonic was very, very helpful in that. And we could find these 12, of which we did the demo day in March, and 2 were selected for investment as well.
Great.
It's all out there in the news.
Yeah.
A very healthy relationship. They really understand how it is to kind of do it.
Right.
And they want to do it more. So yeah, I mean, that's the journey. So that's how CVC came about.
Very interesting. No, I don't think a lot of people, as you said, maybe in the West, people are more aware of it. But I don't think,
Yes, it's
while
emerging.
it's very logical that these big MNCs would want to strategically invest in
Yes.
up and coming startups which align with
Their
what they'd
vision.
like to do. But
Yes.
people don't know of this in the industry
Yes.
as much that
It's nascent
it exists.
right now.
It's very
in India,
nascent.
it's very nascent. It
Yeah.
will grow. We really feel, I've been talking about it in various forums, but we really see CVC picking up big time now.
Yeah.
There already are CVCs in India.
Right.
You see Samsung, you see Flipkart Ventures. A lot of companies are doing it in different ways. The way is different, but pretty much the same objective. They want to find startups which are working in their space, trying to collaborate with them or invest in them or both.
Right.
You could do either. But it's a win-win for the startup. Startups
sure.
never get access to that kind of
Kind of
Imagine a startup couldn't even talk to Panasonic top management before. Now that this program is done, they have access to at least 3 guys, big guys in the Panasonic India team.
Which in itself is a big
It's a
leverage
business
if you look at it.
opportunity, yes.
Yeah, and an
So
opportunity.
it's a win-win for both startups as well as corporates.
Very interesting. If I was to ask you, Yagnesh, I mean, now that you've spent so much time, worked with so many founders, seen so many startups, all of your experience combined also, where do you see the VC world going? I'm not asking you from a trends perspective, but I don't even want to know where will it be next in the next 5 years. But from a career standpoint and the growth standpoint, how are you looking at it, and what can you envision that this is how the landscape is going to look like or change, at least in the near future?
See, I'll tell you, in the near future means 5 to 10 years in this world. It's near future doesn't mean 5 months and 6 months. VC is a long game. It's a test match.
Yeah.
It's not a one day
Yeah.
or a 2020. So you have to look at it that.
Yeah.
And I think the trends will emerge. As I keep saying this internally also to my team, we're looking at a startup wave 2.0. The 1.0, the first wave actually happened in somewhere in 2012 when SEBI formed regulations. And the first decade literally went. We saw some huge funding in 15-16 period that grew multifold. A lot of large VC setups came in. A lot of guys started VC funds.
Right.
And that happened during this whole decade. Then you saw a funding winter starting in 2022, right? And everybody thought, acha, valuations bahut ho gaya hai, let's correct them. And you call that a winter, typically, right? That's what happens in all cycles.
Correct.
So I think we are at the end of that funding winter cycle now, pretty
Got it.
much. You're looking at the next big wave. I think life always moves in waves, right? You get a correction and then again it goes up.
Again, it goes up. Yeah.
So you're looking at a new wave, which I call it as startup wave 2,
Okay.
where you will see more evolved founders, more evolved fund managers who have learned this art now. Whether
Right.
they've done mistakes or not, they've learned this whole thing about in the last 10 years, a lot of learning has happened, which will be put to use. And I think that is going to benefit the Indian ecosystem. And I think the government also, as you know, right, they are supporting these startups.
Yeah.
There are funds set up by SIDBI and others. I mean, government is after
So
it.
many schemes and programs have been initiated as
And
well.
you know, and accelerators and
Yeah.
incubation.
Incubation
you're getting
programs,
grants
incubators,
which
yeah.
are huge grants,
Right.
which can really help startups kick off just without diluting any equity.
Again,
Lot
a lot of
of it is
MNCs also have these incubation
these
programs and
incubation.
accelerator
Exactly.
programs
So
for
you're
founders.
seeing that happen, and people are seeing that India is growing at a decent pace, and will grow at least for the next 10 years, if not more.
Yeah.
Then you're looking at that wave and saying, look, how can you encash? How can you either be a founder, which can create immense amount of opportunity and wealth for you, and also for VC funds. But if they're going to be good founders, somebody's going to fund them.
Yeah.
So I think still feel that you will get very good VCs coming out of this,
Got it.
who will raise funds, who will invest in startups.
Right.
And that is going to be good for the whole ecosystem. So it's all a continuation of it. And I think we are just outside of that direction now. Very interesting times ahead. And we would definitely like to be in it.
I'm sure who else is going to be? You are at the forefront of it.
Yeah.
And as we spoke about everything, I am talking to somebody who has been a CFO all his life. How
Yes.
can I not talk to you about your money, Yagnesh, right? So I was just thinking, I think it's a good time to ask you a little bit about managing huge amounts of money for different companies and people, and at 100x VC also, which is your firm now. Personally, if I ask you, because I think it's a very important question, money, like you said very rightly in the beginning of the podcast, is at the forefront of almost everything that you do. How do you manage your money, right? Where do you put it? Today, you've been in the industry for long enough, I know, and at a very, I would say, well-established position. But what do you do with your money today, Agnish? Like, where do you invest it? Where do you spend it, maybe? Or how do you reinvest it in the business? How are you managing all of it today?
Yeah. So see, some of it, of course, the VC fund business is that you basically earn money on a longer term, as I said, right? It's a 7-year, 8-year cycle. So most of the money is yet to be made, by the way. But whatever little I have, is basically invested in various asset classes.
Right.
So as any other finance consultant would tell you, it's pretty much true.
Yeah.
You start diversifying your risks as you grow older.
Yeah.
Very early stage, you can take risks. People, you're already seeing a lot of this. I mean, thanks to Zerodha's and Grow of the others, of the world, people are investing in stocks now. They are seeing opportunities in equities, and a lot of that money is getting made.
Correct.
But I would recommend people who are not so finance savvy, kind of not take that risk first in either startups.
At least in the beginning.
Unless you have decent amount of money, and let's say you have like 1 crore, you don't mind losing 2-3 lakhs, right? Which is fine.
That's fine.
You put only that much in a risky asset class. So you start dividing that, and I do that pretty much. And very small amount of money I do invest in startups as well.
Okay.
Most of them are 100x companies, of course.
Yeah.
So that is
This
one.
is your personal money you're talking
Personal
about.
money.
Yeah.
So that, yes. And then secondly, I also kind of look at a very huge opportunity in the market in India on a listed space. So I do invest in listed markets as well.
Nice.
Very limited. Don't get the time, but of course, whatever time I get, take long-term bets. So of course, trading is out. I'm not a trading professional, so don't understand that. I understand long-term value creation. And that's where I want to put my money in and say, look, if we are all bullish about India in the next 10 years, where would you invest? I wouldn't want to invest in the US or in the UK or Europe, because I don't understand those markets too much, too well to put my money there.
Yeah.
I will invest where I understand the markets most.
Fair enough.
So, which is, listed markets have evolved in India over a period of time. And there is money to be made. And being a finance professional, if you ask, and being a Gujarati, I don't have to ask really this question of whether you are investing in the markets.
Yeah.
We all do.
Yeah.
Most of them don't talk about it, but they do.
They do.
But that's how it is. So a lot of wealth creation is yet to happen, believe me. As India grows, as infrastructure grows, as investments are coming in all over from the world. And there's, of course, always these cycles of real estate, etc. But I don't understand that too much. I like to kind of hedge my risks in terms of, while investing a very small portion in startups, some of it in listed.
Yeah.
And of course, by this time, you pretty much realize that you have to start slowly de-risking and putting in fixed income, which kind of is a usual math.
Right.
But yeah, that's where my money is, by the way. But
Great. Thank you for breaking that down, and very interesting to also know that again, which I assumed also, you have not laid all your eggs in one basket, and diversification
You
is
should never.
You should never. And I think I can see the diversification clearly there. And I think while I could keep going on with the conversation, Yagnesh, I think I've had a great time understanding so much about your journey and about the VC world. But before we segue into the last segment, which is the rapid fire, I have one last question for you, which I ask every guest. And I always say this is the most basic and the most simplified question, but always the most interesting one to hear an answer to, right? Um, Having been in this industry for such a long time, seeing all kinds of ups and downs, uh, and just being there at the forefront, how do you define success today when you reflect back on everything that you've been through and you're experiencing even today? I know it's a very, like I said, a question that you may have been asked a lot of times, but I think the way a person looks at success says so much about them, and it's an ever changing definition. But how would you define it today at this very moment?
Yeah, well, it's a very broad one, so makes me think. But I think success, at every stage, it changes definition, as you said. For me, success is very different for every individual. You cannot define success and say, look, this is success, please everyone go and get it. Right? Not possible. Everyone will have to define their own definition of success.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's a never-ending game.
True.
You keep moving goalposts, and at every post you are successful, but you are not fully successful because you have another goal to reach to.
Yeah.
So it's always relative in nature. I generally, when I talk to our team members, half of them are very young, my son's age. So it's very interesting to talk to them, right? And their definition of success.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to hear those perspectives, and I try to share as much as possible. But success, you don't define one thing as success. While you enjoy the journey, try to enjoy your journey as much as possible.
What is it for you then today?
Do what you like, do what your passion is. So for example, finance was my passion.
Yeah.
I never gave up finance for a minute and tried something else. Okay.
You stuck to it.
Yeah, I'm stuck to it. I love it, every aspect of it.
Yeah.
I'm doing things which I've done 100 times. I still love it with the new founder. Sitting with them, I was sitting with today one of our class 11 founders and investing time on his spreadsheets. It just gives me that thrill. So first of all, find out what your thrill is in life.
Yeah.
And then invest time behind it, put everything behind it, and you will not repent. That is my idea of success. How much money you've made, what car you own, or what house you are in are things which are important,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah.
Coming it from finance, I don't want to sound philosophical, but it's good to have. But very soon, this is the law of diminishing utility, right? The more you have, the lesser you appreciate that.
Correct.
So keep that in your mind.
Yeah.
And then you will never be unsatisfied or probably disgruntled. At every stage, that has a new meaning.
True.
Right? And as you learn that with the kind of years of experience, you very soon realize it. But the earlier you realize it, the more better you are equipped to face failure.
True.
Because you will face failure.
It is inevitable.
I have in my education. I have
Yeah.
faced problems also in my career. Not that you can't talk about it, but there have been setbacks. But you've never given up on your vision, on your journey. If you keep single-minded focus there, I'm sure you will succeed. It happens to everyone. What stage it comes is never predictable.
Correct.
You may reach it at 30s, you may reach it in 40s, that's fine.
Yeah.
So far as you're doing what you like, it'll continue to motivate you. And don't define success too much. I mean, don't take it so seriously.
Let it be.
That's my view. That's my mantra.
Great. A very interesting answer again. I think the most interesting part of the conversation in the podcast is so many people asking the most basic question, but everybody has a different answer, Yagnesh.
Yes.
Because it's so personal and subjective, right? And that's why I still ask that question.
Yes.
And like I said, it's been an interesting and a very insightful conversation so far. But let's quickly move to the fun segment, which is not going to take a lot of time because I would just need you to answer it with the first thought that comes to your mind, right? Whatever it is. So we'll start with the rapid fire segment for you. And the first
I'm
question.
getting the coffee with current feeling.
It's the Dhairya Decodes rapid fire segment.
Perfect.
The first question for you, Yagnesh, is that what according to you right now is the most important? You can rank in order of preference: money, success, fame, reputation.
I think my reputation is most important.
At the top.
At the top. That is something that I've worked for in years and I'd like to protect. If money comes or not, my reputation and my own standing in my own sense is more important.
Got it. Very interesting. And what would you put last in the list if you had to? Out of money, success, fame, and reputation?
I think fame is the last one in my list.
Got it.
When everything else happens, fame follows.
It'll follow.
So you don't really make it a top priority. That's my view of it.
So, yeah, I think that's a smart thing to do as well. Okay. The second question. What has been the most expensive purchase that you've ever made in your life apart from a car or your house? Apart from these two things.
Okay. I remember this watch I'm wearing.
Yeah.
Actually, it's a Rado.
Huh.
One of the most expensive
So,
purchases.
yeah.
And the beauty is I bought it when I probably couldn't even have thought of buying it.
Okay.
Okay. So this was in 2000, 2001.
Oh, pretty early.
Yeah, pretty early. I was probably not even earning much.
Uh-huh.
And I was in Singapore on my business trip, waited in Singapore somewhere. And in the airport, I have this fancy thing of, just looking at the airport. I love spending time on
At the
airports.
airport. Even I do.
So I saw, and this watch really struck me.
Yeah.
So I had 2 hours in between the two flights, and I said, "Chal, dekhte hain kya hai?" And I saw this watch, and I said, "I can't afford it actually." But something came over me, and I bought it. Okay, I got my credit card swiped. I didn't know how to pay for it at that time. I just bought it at that time.
It was maybe an impulse purchase
It was
at
an
that
impulse purchase, and my wife is saying it, and she understands that I'm an impulse buyer. I do things on impulse.
time. Huh.
And you have this gut feel, right? And you
Yeah.
like something, you go for
You
it.
go for it.
I've always believed that you try spending and then income follows.
That's true. ये मैंने
Risky
भी
strategy
देखा
है, लेकिन वो हो जाता है.
हो
ठीक
जाता
है. I've been lucky. God has been kind.
Yeah.
So that's to answer your question. I still wear this watch. This is very close to my heart.
So this was
The most expensive.
most
watch.
expensive.
Normally I don't do my purchases too much. I mean, just buy things as on the go. But
Interesting.
I don't remember anything else.
okay. Okay. The third question for you, Yagnesh, is that any 2 or 3 very pivotal people in your journey, I'm not saying they have to be role models, but people who have really played a significant role in your life and you've learned something or the other from them. Could be mentors, could be guides, could be people from your family who are extremely important and have played a very large part in your journey. Any 2 to 3 folks.
So, yeah, let me try and remember. I mean, very clearly, Sanjay, who I met in 2018,
Yeah.
made a deep impact.
For sure.
And definitely a very a kind of an inflection point, which kind of he made me take up this whole journey.
Yeah.
So definitely his name is on top. I mean, definitely I owe a lot to him. I've learned a lot of things from him, and hopefully we are creating that vision that he saw. And we are up there. It just feels so good to see that we've really done what we set out to do.
Yeah.
So a large part of that is him. And of course, then I had a couple of bosses in Hinduja group that I look up to, who I really kind of learned my ropes on. Like early days in my Hinduja, I used to work with an MD called Mr. Tyagarajan.
Okay.
Ex-Satyam Computers, those days, ITIT,
IT.
boom was there.
Yeah.
Great guy. I have learned empowerment from him. I have learned that team is above you, and you really win if your team wins. You are after your team when it, kind of takes for accomplishments, and obviously when it's bad times, you are in the front.
Yeah.
There's something that I've learned from him. So some of these learnings are very valuable to me. And I still remember very short stint with him, just 2-3 years probably. But that was very enriching. It taught me a lot of things, not just in professional life, but also in personal life.
Right.
And of course, my better half, Aarti is her name, and I've spent like 33 years now with her.
Long time.
I've learned a lot from her.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Perseverance, sacrifice, calmness of mind, everything. I mean, you really I was a different person in my 20s, 30s. I have changed a lot.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is going to my family, my mom who's with me. They have made a lot of impact in my life.
Great.
So, yeah,
Thank you so much for sharing that, Yagnesh. Okay, the next question is, if you had the chance to have a roundtable conversation with any 3 folks, living or dead, who would you invite for this roundtable conversation?
How many should I name?
Any 3. Any 3 people, living or dead, who you would like to have a dinner table conversation with.
Okay, one of them is definitely on the top of my mind is, I think dinner table conversation with Elon Musk will be an interesting one.
Very interesting.
I'll put him next to Sister Shivani of Brahma Kumaris.
BK Shivani, Sister
BK
Shivani.
Shivani.
Oh my God, okay.
She
Very
has a
interesting.
perspective in life which I think we stumbled upon Brahma Kumaris like 20 years back, and we still follow
You
it
follow
quite
it,
a
yeah.
bit. Love the thought that she has.
For sure.
So I think second clearly goes, I mean, I want them definitely out there.
Yeah.
And with me, of course. And then the third one I have to really think about, and I don't know. Global figure, I would
Global, Indian, anybody?
let's bring Mr. Modi. I think
Very interesting.
he would bring something which is unique.
I'm sure.
And
Modi,
our
Elon
honorable,
Musk, and BK Shivani and Yagnesh.
and that's
What a
it.
table.
That's it. Over.
Dude,
I have to
amazing.
start imagining about it.
Yeah, the mix is just so unique.
Diverse.
I want to be there.
Absolutely.
Fly on
You are
the
the fifth
wall.
one, by
I'm
the
the
way.
fifth
Seat
one.
booked.
For sure. Okay. The last question, Yagnesh, for the rapid fire round is I want to know from you that what, according to you, is that one particular trait, character trait, personality trait that people should work on or build to just have a good, fulfilling career? I'm not calling it a successful career, but be happy with what you're doing. What is that one trait that you should build on and work towards?
See, that's very clear. I have experienced this. I have spoken about it to my team, my family. The concept of fairness, Dhairya, to me is the most important.
Concept of fairness.
Fairness. If you really think deep, if you are fair to everyone that you meet, everything that you look at, and yourself too, that pretty much solves everything.
Right.
Okay? If you really bring it down, I've thought it a lot, and this kind of just takes everything back, everything back. This is like the top of my mind. If you're fair, you don't have anything to regret.
Just doing justice
What
with
is
whatever
fair?
it is. What is fair?
What should I really do with this person? Like, what should I do with this situation? If dispassionately, which means fairness is not a subjective thing. Fairness doesn't come from prejudice. Fairness is fairness. There's nothing, there are no two ways about fairness. If you
Correct.
really go to think honestly about
True,
it.
true.
You just be fair.
You just be fair.
Everything else works out. I mean, hopefully
Very
it
deep
works
thought.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other person may not be fair, but if you are fair, you will not have a problem.
At least at your conscience is clear.
See, you can't control anybody else's action. Clearly. So
Yeah.
there's no point of mulling about it or being rude about it or being unpleasant about it. You just be fair and you sleep with a clear conscience. It's simple. That's one trait I would definitely push everyone to
build.
I don't know if it's a trait or not, but just be fair.
No, it is. I mean, you have to practice it in a way and learn how to get
And
to it.
if you're really honest about it, you can't really not be fair.
Then you cannot not be fair. True. I agree.
That's my way of thinking.
Very interesting. And I think a very deep thought to think over as well. I think with that, thank you so much to everyone who is, tuned in and still with us. I'm going to be linking in all of Yagnesh's social media handles and 100x VC's handles in the description. Definitely check them out. And I'm sure that this episode has given you a lot of insights into the VC world, what it takes to crack a career in this domain, how the future of the industry is going to really look like, what skill sets do you need to build on, what finance as a career really looks like, and what do venture capital funds really do, and how do they invest in startups. With that, any last note or advice that you would like to leave our viewers with, Yagnesh, please feel free to.
Well, last few thoughts. I mean, I actually wore a t-shirt in my last masterclass with class 11 guys.
Okay.
And it had don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't was written like 20 times.
Okay.
And give up.
Right.
So I would just have one message. Decide what you want to do first. Take a long time to decide.
Yeah.
But once you've decided, don't ever give up. If you do this, then pretty much you'll be happy, regardless of the outcome. I think that's one single message to all, may it just be founders or anyone for that matter.
Everybody.
Any professional, anybody, any housewife, whatever it is. I mean, you really need to just be at it and you'll enjoy the journey. The journey is more important than the outcome.
True.
So don't ever give up. That's the whole passion.
Perfect. I just
Thank you
hope
so
that
much.
everybody is able to live up to that and actually implement that in their lives.
Yes.
I hope you had a great time, Yagnesh. It was lovely hosting you.
No, I loved it and thanks for having me again, Dhairya. This really, by the way, this is my first podcast. I've never done it before.
I'm
but
glad.
I really enjoyed it so much. Really didn't think this was going to be this way, but really turned out well. I really enjoyed this. Thanks for having me again.
I'm glad you did enjoy and thank you so much. That's it for today's episode. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the Dhairya Decodes channel. I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.